Corn School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to the Corn School. Today, I'm catching up with Albert Tenuta, Mafra's plant pathologist. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. We got a little bit of rain. It's great.
And maybe that's a little bit thing, might cause a little bit of disease. You are a man of disease.
Disease, you know, they love wet conditions, humid conditions, but, you know, the one thing about diseases, it doesn't matter what the environmental conditions, there's one or two pathogens that will take advantage of it.
Exactly. Now, we talk a lot about tar spot, but there's a lot of other diseases out there. You know, what are the top diseases that are kind of on your radar screen?
Yeah, northern corn leaf blight, of course, has always been our most problematic foliar leaf disease in corn, and it continues to be, and we see it going through cycles. And again, over the past 2 or 3 years, our observations, as well as many of our growers, as well as industry folks, have seen an increase again in terms of northern corn leaf blight. And not unusual, because at different races, all of these different pathogens have ability to mutate, change, become better disease organisms and cause disease. They always keep us on our toes, because no matter what we send out there to fight them, they find a way to go around those defenses and so northern corn leaf blight's a great example.
So you talk about northern, there's some other diseases here, and the key is identification. What I'd like to do is do a little ID 101. For the folks here. I've got about 5 diseases. Let's go through it, and as I say, take us through what you're looking for, what you're seeing, and what that might have for management implications. So let's start with northern corn leaf blight.
Easy to identify. These elongated cigar-shaped lesions, they can be small, 1 inch or longer to 6, 8, take over much of that leaf, and they can be individual or coalesce. Really important with all these diseases to determine their incidence and severity. Incidence basically means how much is in there. 1 plant out of 100, 1%. The more incidence, the broader the impact of that disease across that field, but more important is the severity. And then regardless there is how much damage is being occurred or how much leaf area is being impacted. And for northern corn leaf blight, a great example is when we're out there rating and others and screening trials, you're going from 1% to higher levels. So the more that you are, those 1, 2, 3% or lower, you want to stay on that end. Once you start getting 10, 15, 20%, you can see how much leaf area is gone or compromised, and that's where the yield impact hits.
Let's talk common rust.
Yeah, common rust, and the U.S. has southern rust, not here as much, but again, with common rust, you're looking at those brick red pustules, oval lesions there, those little volcanoes that we always talk about, very similar to what you would see in wheat and all that, and the spores come in, and again, much different than we see with northern corn leaf blight. With common rust, there are differences in varieties in that, but again, trying to figure out what the incidence is and the severity is critically important.
What about this one now, Albert? You got 1%, 89%. What's going to happen at each end of that scale?
Yeah, so on the low end, and this goes across most of the diseases, on that low end there, it's there. You've got to understand, what's the total impact on that. So those 1 to 2 to 5%, depending on when it occurs. Early on in the season, when the plants have a lot longer period to grow, the longer the impact. If it's later on in the season, close to maturity or harvest, then we don't really worry about it, because it's usually late in the season, the plants filling grain, not defending against many of these diseases. Another one is gray leaf spot, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that. You got gray, leaf spot lesions, long, narrow. Take us through this.
Yeah, so much different than what we see with northern corn leaf blight. These ones are elongated or rectangular lesions that go along the veins. So much different than those circular ones that we see with northern corn leaf blight. So those are, again, easy to identify and distinguish. And again, with gray leaf spot, the more leaf tissue compromised or more infection, then we start seeing a greater impact on yield as well.
Let's talk eye spot.
Eye spot is one of those that often shows up first, and again, it looks just like an eye, and it's so much different than the others. So again, remember, looking at the shape and that can really distinguish the different diseases. It's pretty easy when you concentrate on that. So eye spot looks like an eye, so we call it eye spot. Now this is one that shows up early, and often we can see it on some susceptible hybrids that has a lot of damage. So you can see anywhere from 5, 10, 20% or more on these, but with eye spot, what you see isn't really what ends up in your bins. And so we can see that with eye spot, maybe 1 to 5% yield loss. Northern corn leaf blight, that could be 5 to 20 to 30% or more, depending on the conditions in that. Gray leaf spot, which we've seen a little less than over the years. Northern and tar spot are taking those areas over, but in the southwest here, we still see some gray leaf spot as well.
Yeah. Hey, we can't do this video without talking tar spot. We'll leave it to last, but run us through that. What are we looking for?
Yeah, so tar spot, again, totally different than the others. Here you've got those black tar lesions that occur, stroma that occur on the leaves, and they could be circular, they could be elongated, they can be diamond shaped, and that they can also look like a fish eye, very similar to, say, that eye spot where you've got a tanned circle around it with that beautiful tar spot, a stroma in the middle in that, and sometimes that's both in terms of hybrids and environmental conditions can see that. So again, all of these diseases are much different, right, in terms of how they appear. Now with tar spot, a little different. So when we talk about eye spot and some of the other ones, when you're 30-40%, maybe not seeing as big of yield impact with tar spot. Once we start getting to that 20-25%, when the tissue starts going yellow within those areas, that's when we see that 20 to 25% yield loss. We can start losing considerable amount of yield there.
Yeah. What about timing and scouting, Albert, in general? Obviously, we're out there scouting for tar spot. Are we scouting for leaf diseases all at the same time?
Yeah, they occur. All of them can occur on the same leaf, in the same field. And again, hybrids are critically important. So again, when you're talking to your seed provider, find out about the hybrids. What are the benefits? What are some of the concerns that you should be looking at? Are they more susceptible or less susceptible? And again, that would give you a good idea. Also, what you've seen in the past, right? Like many cases, it's not like it's shown up, especially if the incidence is a lot, say 30-40%, that means that it's more than likely been in the field before, and you've seen it before. And so again, that's another way to assess your risk is, are these diseases common in your fields, and at what level? And if you start seeing them increase year after year after year, then you've got to really start to manage them, think about it, and look at those hybrids, as well as, if you need fungicides as well.
Awesome. Well, Albert, always great to have you on the Corn School, a great scouting guide. Appreciate you for stopping by.
Great, thank you. And don't forget, there's other materials there, cropprotectionnetwork.org.